Welcome to the Screen Podcast, and thanks for joining us for insight and analysis of the global film industry, brought to you by the teams from Screen International and ScreenDaily.com. I'm your host, Wendy Mitchell, and we've got a packed episode this week looking at our time at the Berlinale. I'm going to be joined by our deputy editor, Louise Tutt, and senior UK and international reporter, Ben Dalton, to talk about the films, the talks, the deals, the parties, and yes, the quite complicated politics. We tried to keep this episode up to date with this open letter that was breaking on Tuesday, and on Wednesday afternoon, Ben was able to talk directly to Tricia Tuttle, getting her response to this open letter about Gaza. You can find Tricia's interview now on ScreenDaily.com, and I encourage you to go read exactly what she had to say. But for now, let's jump right into this episode all about the Berlinale 2026. Today, I am joined by our deputy editor, Louise Tutt. Hi, Louise.
Hi, Wendy.
And Screen senior reporter for UK and International, Ben Dalton.
Hello.
Hello. Ben is still in Berlin as we record this. Louise and I are just home, and that explains why I sound like I probably am on the verge of having the Berlin cold and why the bags under my eyes look like that. Anyway, as we're speaking, the festival has many days to go, and I kind of hate it that we start talking about a festival as if it's over after the first weekend. There are many more films to premiere, but at this point, we had quite a lot of reflections already about the Berlinale 2026. So I'm excited to start. We're going to talk first about the films. The consensus I hear out there in the industry from critics and the market is that it is definitely the film slate under Tricia Tuttle and her team is definitely getting better than maybe the more art house leaning Carlo Chatrian years, but it still needs a few more bigger titles. From what I'm hearing, people still feel there is that disconnect between those packages we're seeing in the market and what's screening at the festival. Having said that, let's look at a few of the sort of buzzy ones for Cornel Mundusco's At the Sea, starring Amy Adams. You know, that was a big talking point that she was going to be there in this kind of role. But I would say the critical consensus is that's probably a 3 out of 5 star film. Same with Rosebush Pruning by Kareem Ainuz. Very story cast, Callum Turner, Jamie Bell, Pam Anderson in that. That was a big land for the Berlinale to get that. From what I hear, I haven't seen the film yet. From what I hear, if that film had been in Cannes, the critics would have savaged it. Maybe it gets a slightly warmer welcome at Berlin. Charlie XCX was in town with her film The Moment. And of course, Josephine, the big Sundance hit. And we should say Sundance hit, but it is a film about a young person who observes a sexual assault and is traumatized by it. So, yes, not just a digestible, easy-to-audience crowd-pleaser hit. But to me, that's a shame that was playing after the weekend in Berlin when most of the buyers and indeed most of the industry has left. The German film Rose, I think at this stage when we're talking, is the hit of the Berlinale 2026. This is definitely at least a 4 out of 5 star film, I think, starring Sandra Hüller, who has had great success in Berlin. Another film that went down is, funnily enough, Rose has the highest score on the Screen Critics Grid at the moment. This film with the lowest score on the Screen Critics Grid is Nightborn, which is a genre film from Hanna Bergholm of Finland, who had made Hatching. I will say, even though that might have the lowest score with these art house critics, that is a wonderful film to have had in Berlin competition. Bravo to Tricia for putting it in competition, because this, I think, is going to sell really well. Her last film sold to 75 territories. It was a sort of wake up to people in the Berlin audience. It's a little bit bloody, kind of fun, looking at motherhood, also very feminist.
I think it has been reviewed well as well beyond the Screen Grid.
Critics Grid. Okay.
Yeah. I think that is a fun title. I agree, Wendy. I think it's a good one, and I think that will do well beyond Berlin.
Yeah, me too. And that's there's maybe a different disconnect of some of the art house critics in Berlin maybe some of the mainstream critics there saw the real potential of this film. It was great. It's got Rupert Grint in it as well.
Yeah,
Ron
who's made
Weasley.
he's made a real career in these genre films, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Post Harry Potter. The other one, like you mentioned, rosebush pruning. I've got a sneaky suspicion that might do better outside Berlin as well. There's an entire cinema-going audience out there that's interested in that cast and that kind of arch view
sort
of
of
the
satirical,
world.
dark humor.
Yeah,
I talked to a few critics who didn't like it, and despite everything they said, I was like, I can't wait to see this film. So once again, outside of a festival bubble, that film could do really well.
Yeah.
So I agree with you, Louise. We need to put this in context.
I've been told there are one or two moments with the actor who may or may not become James Bond in the future that
Pamela Anderson.
That makes it interestingly with Amazon MGM execs when they see what he gets up to in rosebush pruning. So look, there's things there for people to be interested in, and yeah, there's things people might catch on to with that film down the line.
Great. Thank you for that positive energy, everybody, because we really need to remember all of that. Because I think we do need to ask, what is success for some of these films? At Rotterdam, and I'm not slighting Rotterdam, maybe 5 or 6 of those films are going to have commercial success globally. And that's not a problem. That is not their measure of success. That's a very healthy ecosystem that Rotterdam builds for less commercial titles. But I do still think with Berlin, in Cannes, you get a Seurat one day and a sentimental value the next day and a Tom Cruise the day after that. And it's going to probably take another few years of Tricia's work to get past this, past Berlin hang up of we don't have, the bigger films. And I think she's working on that, and I think it's getting better. And I feel positive that, Berlin is maybe still not a great place to launch an awards season title just because of only because of the dates. Although we did see Blue Moon there last year.
I would also say that Cannes, remember that we only tend to remember the big hits out of Cannes. There's a lot of films that don't, that do fall short in Cannes, and Cannes a big platform on which to, have your film slated by the critics.
Exactly. I did know that I was picking out some Cannes hits, and we do tend to forget the ones that get eviscerated and die a death at Cannes, and it's hard to revive them.
Not even eviscerated, just aren't very good.
Hmm.
I mean, I've got a few others I can add that I know that screen critics have really liked.
Good, please do.
I mean, people like Everybody Digs Bill Evans, not Big Evans, although that's another film, I guess. In Panorama, there's the US drama Mouse. That has particularly stood out. And I can see that being, quite an interesting one that could go the distance to award season. Although, when I spoke to Tricia before the festival, she's like, should we even... the award season takes up so much oxygen as well. It shouldn't just be about can it go the distance.
Exactly. I don't want to feed that narrative that to be a hit, it needs to go from Berlin to Oscar nominations. That's not what I'm trying to...
So critics have liked Mouse. There's a couple in Perspectives. Prayers for the Dying, which is that sort of period American Western. And German director Kai Sanicki's trial of... going to mispronounce this, Hein, which is...
I heard a lot of good things about that
period
film.
drama, folk horror. These all deserve to be seen by cinema audiences and could really find cinema audiences outside of the festival bubble. Let's hope they do.
I would also take us back to the opening night, and this was Charbonneau set up No Good Men, a film that we know that other festivals had looked at, but that has ended up, landing in this still very prestigious opening spot. And I was there on opening night, and I know that after the film came out, buyers were already having conversations because, it had a warm reception. People in the room seem to like it. The reviews are pretty good without, sort of blasting in the away. They recognizing the value of a romantic comedy in Afghanistan. And I know that it has had some deals already that, will be announced in the days to come. So there's still a sort of a valuable place there for the right thing, even if there's still a way to go to get those bigger films.
People love that opening film, sort of a romantic comedy that obviously doesn't, has a... maybe it's set in Kabul, so it's never going to end in a it's not going to follow the traditional romantic comedy trajectory, but it's going to use those tropes up to a point. But it was really well liked. I'm really
I think
happy about that.
Perfect opening film for Berlin, because it's a crowd pleaser, which you want on an opening night, and I think that film can travel really well. But it's also really smart. It's showcasing global cinema, a global voice, who we have to say her past 2 films went to Cannes. So I think it's great that Shar took this film to be the Berlin opening night. And that was a real, I think, what a coup for Tricia, because I do know other festivals not only were interested, but had invited it, and they waited for Berlin. So that's a perfect example. Louise, I know we're hearing good things also about Queen at Sea, right?
Yeah, at Screens reviewers were all really excited about this. Lance Hammer, is the director. It stars Juliette Binoche. She's a woman struggling to support her mother who's suffering from dementia. We're hearing good things about that one. And there's also a Pakistani film in Panorama, Lali, that Screens reviewers are really looking forward to seeing as well. There's a lot of good stuff still to come.
Yeah. And I'm glad we pointed out. I mean, and having all of us chime into that, there really have been some hits already at Berlin, I should say. And even though I do think there still is that slight disconnect about the big films for big buyers, I think we're getting there, and those are a lot of great films, so we'll have many different kinds of success. Another film that went down really well was Yellow Letters, and this is a good one to mention. It's in the competition. It's the follow-up to The Teacher's Lounge, which was a Berlin hit of years past. And I mentioned this one now because it did quite a few deals. So, Louise, do you want to tell us about how we saw deal making at this point? As we know, it might take a month for all these deals to get done.
Well, even longer, possibly. I mean, the big deal, as the trades were quick to note, was the US deal for Josephine, the competition title buy, which was bought by the new US buyer, Sumerian. But they saw that film at Sundance and they announced it in Berlin. So I think that there used to be many more deals done on the ground at these festivals, but now it's not. One thing that happened with the market this year, it was really interesting, is I think a lot of the US sellers came in early. The US sellers came in and were doing meetings from the Monday, which drew everybody in early. And I think the German buyers were in early on the Monday. I think both of them had the same idea for different reasons about leaving by the weekend. They all leave like members of their team in place. They go to market screenings of the other competition films, so they've seen everything. And now they're just waiting for the reviewers' verdict on these titles. So we'll probably see more deals as you say, Wendy, in the next month. They were but we are starting to see a few deals trickle in, certainly for France, I think, on some titles. Ben, you might know more about that.
Absolutely, yeah. Level K has sold Anke Blonde's Dust, this thriller that's in competition, that's gone to France, and there are other deals for big territories coming soon. So I know there's more happening on that. I think the temperature has been, it's cool instead of being cold or hot. I think it's, these conversations are definitely still going on, so wouldn't want to worry the industry that everything's completely flat. They know these sales are still happening, but I spoke to one sales agent at the weekend who said that there was something they liked, but they want to wait and see other things. They put some faith in Tricia's words that she's tried to spread it out across the whole of the festival, and that there may still be something else that they may prefer to go, that buyers may prefer to go in for towards the end of the week. So we'll be hearing more, next week once the festival is finished.
Yes, stay tuned to screendaily.com for all the deals, because I know many more deals are coming. It's just people were in quite a bullish mood. As you said, maybe not hot, but warm. Yeah.
In the market, there were quite a lot of buyer presentations by US sellers this year. That was interesting.
Because those traditionally maybe have happened at AFM when people are in LA, or maybe a few at Cannes, but I don't recall many of those in Berlin before.
Yeah, they had, Film Nation had a couple of events. One was for this film Skeleton, which is a creature feature that's going to star Brie Larson. And it's about a young boy who, begins to suspect his mother is not quite who she thought she was. And then they did something with fun with puppets as well for the Leica animation Wildwood. And buyers were excited about both of those. Lionsgate International's got the psychological horror Head Full of Ghosts. They did a big presentation for that. Interestingly, they said they weren't officially selling The Housemaid 2 here. I'm going to start selling it in Cannes, but I wonder how many buyers asked them about that.
Yeah, what a hit. Just one quick reflection on that Sumerian deal. That really announces them, I think, in a big way, because they sort of announced that they were going to be buying. We hadn't seen a deal from them yet. I think a lot of people were wondering at what level. And I think a lot of people were expecting Josephine to maybe go to an A24, a Neon, a company like that. Or, who knows, a Sony Classics or somebody old school. But Sumerian really announced themselves as a major player in that art house space for the US with this deal.
I think that'll give some good energy to the sector that, is still concerned about what is happening with Netflix, Warner Brothers, Paramount. We need new blood, we need new voices, and we need them to buy films, and buy films for theatrical release where they are looking to do that. So I think that'll, give a bit of energy to, particularly to the US sector.
Yeah, so congrats to my old friend, Rob Williams, who's now president of content strategy at Sumerian. I used to know him 25 years ago back at Wellspring, and a lot of people have been more familiar with him recently when he was working at Participant Media. So well done to Sumerian. I wanted to mention a few that EFM is not just about buying and selling meetings. I was around those sort of EFM venues moderating some talks and things, and at those official sessions they do. And I need to say that this team, I mean, obviously Cannes Marche also does a lot of amazing talks and inspiring keynotes and different kinds of sessions for producers. But I think EFM really knocks it out of the park with this every year. And every year they innovate. So one innovation this year was these new animation days. And I think it was 3 days of dedicated talks, pitches, meetings about animation, particularly independent animation, of course. And as we know, the European industry and beyond gathers in Annecy for animation. And what I like about EFM is they are not trying to obliterate what Annecy is doing. They have Annecy as a key partner. I think they had, dozens of partners from the animation world to really make sure this was a smart way to do it. I heard really good feedback. And like every day of those days, you could go see some amazing animated films at various stages of production being pitched. Really good in-depth keynotes. And I know that from what I was hearing, everybody on the ground thought that was a huge success. So I'm pretty sure that will be back next year. Another key industry activity they have is the EFM Startups. And this year, these were presented in collaboration with Screen International, we're proud to say. It really does seem to work well to bring in that connection to entrepreneurs, to the tech world. The winner of the EFM Startup Award, I think this is the first year we've done an award, was We Da Vinci. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. And that is CEO Veronica Glumper. This is a Munich-based AI-powered software startup specializing in collaborative content generation for media companies. I don't know much more than that for now, but congrats to Veronica. And Ben, did it feel buzzy when you were presenting the other day the EFM Startup Award?
It absolutely did, Wendy. We presented this award on the Monday evening here in Berlin, and this was when the long-awaited snow finally set in. So people braved that weather and the still, well sub-zero temperatures, and the room was full. And, other people who'd had pictures there, and then there were several producers I recognized there who were looking to connect. And first they heard from Tanya Meissner, who's running the EFM. And so, they sort of got a good event for the whole thing. And so, I think that they'll be very happy with how that all went down.
Yeah, it's really exciting to see some of that it's not just meetings of buying and selling at the EFM. There's so much more to it. Louise, I think it's good. I think it's very Screen-like that we've waited till now to talk about politics. It was headlines, some of them a bit more feverish. Let's say some of the other trades were covering politics as if Watergate was happening on the ground at the EFM. I think Screen has a more measured approach to the way we cover this. Do you want to try to sum it up a little bit, Louise? Because I'm scared too.
Well, I mean, I was going to say it all began at the jurors' press conference, but I mean, politics is always intertwined with the Berlin Film Festival. Wim Wenders, the jury president this year, made a remark about the fact that films are not politics. He said, we are the counterweight to politics, we're the opposite of politics. And that was taken... that immediately disappointed people. It disappointed people who want the Berlin Film Festival to be a place where politics is discussed. It's a safe place for debate, a platform that values free speech, which Tricia has worked hard to tell people and reassure people and filmmakers that the Berlin is that place. So I think probably Mr. Wenders slightly misspoke, or it was all taken out of context. There was some Arundhati Roy, the novelist, was very disappointed by his comments. She was due to come to the Berlin Film Festival to support a short film with which she'd been involved several years ago, screening in the Berlinale Classics. She posted on social media that she wouldn't be coming due to Wim Wenders' remarks. I'm sure she didn't just look at the weather forecast and decide it was a little cold, but it was a pity, because that then became a major talking point, and I'm sure that was very hard for the Berlin organisers, given I think we can all agree how much effort they've put into making sure Berlin is a place where people can come. Interestingly, Screen, our journalist Ben, and our senior reporter Mona had spoken to a group of Arab filmmakers who were back at the festival this year following I don't think they boycotted it last year, but there were certainly concerns in 2024 after the fallout from the closing night remarks that Berlin wasn't a safe place for free speech. And these Arab filmmakers very much said they wanted to come to the festival. They wanted a chance both to present their films and to have a platform. So they wanted to talk about politics very much. And I think it was the same, Ben, jump in here, with the Israeli filmmakers with whom you spoke.
Absolutely. They several of them said, they are happy with the Berlinale right now. They've spoken to Tricia, and they feel that it's a space. One executive I spoke to described it as the impossible bridge between, political issues and between places in the world that are, suffering and sort of experiencing strife. Only on the two things I would say on this political issue. And the idea that Wim Wenders and one of his jurors, Eva Puczynska, who only a couple of years ago won an Academy Award for making a film about the Second World War, that these filmmakers don't understand the political dimension of cinema is, to put it mildly, unlikely. Of course they understand the political dimension of cinema. Maybe, on the press conference stage, they didn't use the precise words. But I also think we should look at what Eva said, which is, she said to the journalist who'd asked about this, that his meaning of political wasn't necessarily the same as hers, and that actually political output from Eva Puczynska could be considered her work. I think there are some members of the press who are looking for particular statements and are sort of out to get those, and if they don't get them...
Maybe even clickbait, shall we say, Ben? I know.
Indeed. And look, a lot of this then was very quickly addressed by a very well put together statement from Tricia Tuttle on the Saturday evening.
I thought it was a great statement. It seemed to be in her own voice, not just some sort of robotic corporate speak. I thought it had some really good messages for the film community in there. Everybody who spoke to him in Berlin was like, wow, what a good statement. But things are trickier than they first seemed, because some people didn't think that statement was enough or didn't like that statement. Ben, can I just get you to tell us what one of the latest developments was? And this came on the Tuesday afternoon/evening, I believe.
Indeed. So on the Tuesday evening of the festival's second week, a statement was released. This has been signed, an open letter signed by over 80 alumni of the festival. So that's typically high-profile actors, writers, directors who've attended the festival in previous years, some of whom have been here this year, urging the festival to condemn Israel's genocide in Gaza, as they describe it, and to uphold free speech on the topic of Palestine. So this is very much a continuation of the controversy that started at the opening jury press conference. It had maybe softened for a day or two, but then very much restarted with the Tuesday evening. And this open letter, which is promoted by the sort of the collective film workers for Palestine, the letter itself says that, well, to quote, "We are dismayed at the Berlinale's involvement in censoring artists who oppose Israel's ongoing genocide against Palestinians in Gaza and the German state's role in enabling it." And it then ends by calling on the festival to quote, "fulfill its moral duty and clearly state opposition to Israel's genocide." And so this strong feeling is clearly still there in some quarters, and the issue is not going to go away quite yet for Berlin.
Yeah, I mean, I was quite shocked to read this statement flat out accusing the Berlinale of censorship. I'm just saying what's in the letter. I don't have any evidence of that. We'll see if evidence emerges. Ben, is this letter, is it just about the Van Vendors comment, or is it bigger than that?
No, this very much, the letter and the promotion of it from Filmworkers for Palestine ties it into a sort of longer context. They claim in their promotion email of the letter that it's a festival's track record since 2024 of censoring artists. So this goes back to the issues at the closing ceremony and sort of what fell out.
That was around No Other Land.
Around the documentary No Other Land, which won an award from the festival. But then the fallout from the comments, which many regarded as perfectly natural from the filmmakers, and, you know, in calling for peace and for justice for the people of Palestine, then led to Tricia having to speak to the German state about the festival's sort of relationship around that topic. So yes, this letter goes back further. It talks about what happened this week with Arundhati Roy withdrawing from the festival. That's in the promotion of the letter. But then the letter itself also talks about other international film festivals and their position on speaking about Palestine, those that have endorsed the boycott of Israel, such as IDFA in the Netherlands. And yes, it definitely connects it to something beyond just the last 4 days.
Yeah, I mean, it does. I know Berlin is a political place, a political city, but are people asking Terry Fremeau to come out in support of Gaza? I mean, it just feels like they really can't win in Berlin, no matter what they're doing.
It definitely, this has fallen heavy on Berlin's shoulders this year and maybe in the last couple of years, and it feels unfortunate that it has fallen on Tricia Tuttle as the festival director, who is only in her, halfway through her second year in the role, and has issued what many considered on Saturday to be a very considered statement, trying to protect the interests of the festival, but also to represent it as a place of discussion and of politics and of speech, but just not where that is a necessity, where people can do that should they wish. But there are now, a long list of names associated with the festival who have clearly put themselves in a different position from what Tricia wrote on Saturday.
Yeah, I think it is powerful that the people signing this letter are Berlinale alumni. So these are people who have had a history with this festival. Can you tell us just a few of the names, Ben?
Absolutely. So one of the headline names, Tilda Swinton, who just last year received an honorary Golden Bear from the festival and spoke on receiving it about political conflict and the need to speak out against that. She also has a history with the festival that goes back far beyond that. My first edition of the Berlinale that I came to, she was here with Wes Anderson's The Grand Budapest Hotel, and she'd been many times even before that. So for her to sign this and represent against this, it does have sort of a resonance as the festival, as far as the festival is concerned. You then also have Javier Bardem. You have UK talent, such as Peter Mullen, also obviously like Tilda. And then directors, you have Mike Leigh, Nan Goldin, Adam McKay, so folks from the States as well. And then also Avi Mograbi, who is Israeli himself, is a filmmaker. So there is a spread of people, and, the number of being over 80 names who are connected to the festival shows that there's still a large group of people who feel very strongly about this and feel that, in their view, the festival has not done enough.
Ben, this is not a topic that's easy to talk about in sound bites, so we do appreciate you being able to digest that for us. I assume this is, if anything else unfolds, it'll be a topic that you and everybody at Screen will be continuing to report on?
Absolutely. This is a topic that people across the industry feel very strongly about, many of them, and will be more developments on this front in the last few days of the festival, but then also in the weeks following. So we will keep covering this.
And film festivals also can mean a little bit of fun, Ben. Ben Dalton, party correspondent. I'm going to come back to you because I did hear, and I did feel it myself a little bit, that maybe there were more good social events at Berlin this year. And I don't mean this just in a flippant way. That means companies believe in Berlin as a place to bring the community together and to invest in a party, a reception. Ben, do you want to tell us some of your social highlights?
Absolutely. Well, I've been trying to make the most of my hours in Berlin from the start to the end of the day. I would say this started Friday evening, and the Brits have really been out in full force this year in Berlin. So True Brits, who are releasing George Jake's Sunny Dancer, through a very cool party, actually underground within a bar in Berlin. So there was the bar upstairs, and then they were beneath that. And George and his cast and his producer, Ken Pitry, and the whole team, Ziggy Kmasa was there. And then, you even have music stars Este Haim from the band Haim, who done the music.
That's exciting.
Well, she's written the music for this film. She's there. So that was a good start on the Friday. The following day, we had another UK party for Ashley Walters' Animal. That was elbow to elbow, from pretty much 10 o'clock when it started. Lots of UK folk and a few sort of international execs. Yeah, very happy to celebrate that with Ashley, who was there. But I have to say, maybe the pinnacle, the highlight of this has been Charlie XCX was in town, and there was a party thrown for The Moment, which Universal is rolling out internationally in many territories from this coming weekend. And this was classic Berlin vibes. This was a sort of dark rave in a smoky bar, a long wait, for a drink, but it was really, really good. Her husband, George Daniel, who is in the band The 1975, was DJing for a long time. And unlike some of these events where the talent maybe shows up for 10 minutes and then pops out, no, they did a good 3 or 4 hour stretch. She's dancing away behind him as he's DJing. Director Aiden Zamiri was there, just, enjoying it with everyone else. And actually, teams from several of the other films in the festivals then showed up. Some of the cast of Gore Verbinski's film, which is at the festival, showed up. So it went on until the small number hours. And I think people will be talking about that one for years to come.
Amazing. Yeah, we need this. We need to remember this. Film festivals can be fun. I didn't go, but the Median Board, the big German funder party, they used to have it at the Ritz. And for the past couple of years, I think they've had it at a place outside. And I mean, I never was warm enough in my whole stay at Berlin, even under the duvet with my hot water bottle. So you did not find me outside. I mean, there are...
Oh, you mean out in the open air outside?
They were in the open air, but they were around, I think, fire barrels or something.
Spotless.
Still, it is not enough to keep me warm. But that's a very buzzy party for the German industry. Sort of bonfires, I guess, bonfire vibes.
On Sunday, we had Charades party. That is a staple of the Berlin scene at a classic Berlin venue, Katerblau. We then, on Monday, when you might have think some people have sort of headed away from the festival, there was Mubi had its drinks event, but also there was a UK reception at the British Embassy that was very well attended. There were a couple of people who more or less flew in just for that, to come for that event. And then also... Another sort of regular Berlin fixture is the European film promotion Shooting Stars, and they have a lovely dinner to sort of close off the activities of that. But actually, they really expanded that this year and made it a much bigger dinner event, and actually presented the awards to the 10 sort of emerging European actors at the dinner, and had probably about double the number of people they usually do. So people are clearly still keen to celebrate their activities and have these events.
Yeah, and to stay on.
Yeah, and to stay on and be there and keep them going. And this is another sign of support that the industry feels for this festival and this market. So overall, it sounds like we have a lot of good things, a lot of positive experience. But it does sound like, there's a lot to be cheerful about, except that maybe the weather was a bit too cold for me. But a lot of heat in Berlin otherwise, from Charlie XCX behind the decks to the activity at the Martin Gropius Bau and secret meetings in the Ritz. And of course in the screening rooms. A lot of good energy at Berlin this year. As I mentioned,
particularly from the Germans as well.
Yes,
the German industry.
Yeah, for sure. The German industry, I think, is really embracing this new era of Berlinale. They are also feeling really good about, they've had a strong start to the year. About 5 German films in a row have been hits at the box office in 2026 already. So they're feeling pumped. And also the week before Berlin, the streaming levy of 8% was more fully proposed. It still needs to be completely accepted. There was a slight wobble that now they were hoping to get it accepted by the spring, and now it seems like they might need more of the rest of the year to get it accepted, so it would come into place in early 27. But still, the Germans were very happy, and as we mentioned, a couple of German films did really well in the program, I think, too.
It really gives a boost to German buyers, because it means that, with a streaming levy, it's much more likely that they're going to buy the films that German buyers buy. So it means that they can sell that pay one window, which suddenly reinvigorates a lot of the international market, because German players really come back into action. So that's worth looking at. It'd be worth looking at going into Cannes.
Good point, Louise. Oh, Louise, I need some time to recover before I think about Cannes, though. At least Cannes might be warmer. Who knows? But thank you, dear colleagues, Ben and Louise, for a wonderful chat about the Berlinale 2026. As I mentioned, this festival is not over. Keep reading Screen Daily for not only the breaking news, but to keep an eye on that jury grid, which is always a talking point of which films might win that. Is that going to predict the Golden Bear or not? Let's see.
And also, it's as we keep saying, it's not just about the winners. It's not just about the films that make it to award season. It's about, there's a lot of scope for these films to find audiences around the world.
Yeah. Thank you, Louise, for that good reminder that it's not just clickbait and award season. Ben and Louise, go warm up somewhere. Ben, continued success to you as you navigate the now snowy paths at the Berlinale, and we'll see you for the next episode. Thanks.
Thank you, Wendy.
Bye, Wendy.
Well, we had a lot to say about the Berlinale, as I knew we would. And thanks again for joining us for the Screen Podcast. It means a lot that you listen to us. Please do rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods, and that helps us a lot. We hope you'll come back for next week's episode. It's going to be pretty exciting. We are going to be talking to the stars of Waste Man, a great British film. We're talking to David Johnson and Tom Blythe, both hugely rising stars, to hear what they have to say. So do join us again. Meanwhile, thanks to the whole Screen team who makes this podcast possible, especially our podcast producer, Ellie Calnan, and web editor, Orlando Parfit. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we'll see you again next week.